All right, friends, welcome back again to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. Our YouTube channel is dedicated to all things Bannerlord related. That means we are dedicated to WARSAILS and helping you get better at this expansion pack for Bannerlord. Now, today we're going to be focused exclusively on Nord troop and compositions for the early game. In other words, you're running around your campaign, you're part of the Nords, either you're a mercenary or maybe you're a vassal at this stage. This character is level 12, and we have found a nice battle here where we can give an example both of battlefield tactics, but also troop composition. One of the most difficult parts of Bannerlord are all the choices. You have this bewildering amount of choices of different infantry. I'm going to help you simplify it today. We're also going to give you tactics that work. Our channel is dedicated to tactics, and we have some of the very best on YouTube. Now, we're going to be focused primarily on 4 different units. In fact, the Nords do have an offensive line with big old axes and polearms and stuff like that, but we will not be using these units early in a Nord campaign. At least I don't suggest you use them because they can be difficult to keep alive. Without a shield, they're very vulnerable to cavalry. Our army is going to be defensive, and we're going to use it in a way that accentuates those defensive attributes very well. So you can see what we have here. What I've done is form just roughly an early game army. We have 100 units maximum. We're going to have 2 examples later on. We'll make another battle. We'll find another battle here with more than 100 troops. But this would be kind of you're just out of the chase looters and villagers around stage. You're marching around the battlefield, and this is what I would recommend. For those curious also, we are going to do a full troop rundown for the Nord. It might even be 2 or 3 episodes. We will talk about strengths and weaknesses, and individual units we will get deeper into the weeds on. I do want to highlight this unit here. This unit here I think is out of place, or more accurately, I think they are stronger than a lot of tier 3 units, and that is because they have outstanding javelins. They don't have terrific throwing skills, but I think if these units are used correctly, I think they're going to be very useful. Hence, they are in our army here. You can see they have a spear, a shield, a sword, and then they have these really nice javelins. We're going to try to put those to use. The other thing you'll note is lots of archers. I recommend this. We'll talk extensively about why that's important in the early game. You will see in a moment why it's important. But another big reason it's important is simply survival. When you're fighting in huge battles, you're going to get mauled if you have a bunch of infantry and you just send your troops in, right? You're going to have a small amount of troops. Archers, you can keep at the edge of the battlefield, and your survivability and the amount of kills your army will get will be much higher. All right, so we're badly outnumbered here. It's at 50%, give or take, right? And you see the power bar here. We're definitely favored to lose this battle, and I think we're going to win it fairly easily. We have, this is the character from our Nord playthrough. We just did a little side series with this. Of course, we'll make sure we're on Bannerlord difficulty here. Let's see if there's anything else to tell you. I don't think so. In we go. We'll talk more about the units here in the formation setup screen. Now, this battlefield, actually, this is going to work just fine. Let's talk about our army first. What I've done here is set up 4 divisions. You can ignore the 2nd division. That's our cavalry division, which loosely translates it into that's your main character, right? That's the only horse that's on the field. That's the main character. So ignore the 2nd division. What we have is the 1st division, 4th division, 5th division, and 6th division. These all have very distinct roles in this battle, and we're going to set them up using these little icons here. What we're going to do for the 1st division is make this our best troops by selecting give preference to troops at higher tiers. We're also going to put the shield on there. In this situation, I don't think we need to do that, but we're just going to do that anyways. Over here, the skirmishers, and these are our 2 infantry divisions. We'll separate them early on. We're going to say low tier preference and javelins, this little throwing weapon button. Then when you zoom in here, you get all these little weaker skirmishers that I was just raving about a second ago. We're going to put these guys to work, see how they do. Now, our 2 archer divisions, I do want to make distinctions here, right? The Nords have 3 different tiers of archers. There's a distinction, though. Their tier 5 archer only has 1 quiver of arrows. They're very effective units with the bow, but they will run out of ammo before your tier 5 because your tier 3 and tier 4, because they have 2 quivers. When you zoom in, you can see they have multiple quivers. The other distinction is that the tier 5 units can't really fight. They don't have a shield. They don't really have strong weapon skill. And so what we want to do is separate them. You separate them by selecting a shield. For the archer division, of course, that you want to have a shield, right? And that basically pulls those non-shielded archers out of the division. You can see shield, shield, shields. And as soon as you make the division too big with the slider bar, the shields start to disappear. Right, so now it's almost entirely shields. What we're going to do is put these guys a little bit closer to the enemy because they have a shield. They're going to survive longer in battle. Right, not only that, but generally your higher tiered units have better armor. Now here's our setup here. It's actually pretty simple. We're going to put the first division, this strong infantry, out in front in a square. Square is F2, F5 on the PC, and you console fellas probably have some kind of command that you're going to want to learn for that. Now your skirmishers, we're just going to put here in a big line. It can actually be spread if you want. Spread is F2, F3, something like that. These guys have a shield. They're capable of fending off cavalry okay. The biggest thing we want them to do, though, is just soften the enemy targets up as they get closer. We'll zoom up in the air here so you can see what's going on. This is the formation that I'd recommend. Note this 4th division is closer to the enemy than this 5th division. That's key. Now, we're not going to do much of movement in this battle, right? We got to assign this captain. All we're going to do is move this 1st division back as the enemy approaches. Once it's moved back, we will then move it to the side. And what that does is it attracts attention away from our archers, away from our skirmishers. And these guys are our strongest units. If you're going to have somebody getting attacked in your army, you want it to be your Huskarls and better infantry. All right, let's go ahead and start the battle. We are using the RTS mod, so fortunately, we're going to be able to speed up the intro here. Otherwise, this would take a long time. What I recommend also is you go in and make sure your units have line of sight. I think we have time to show you. If for some reason, you set up your archers before the battle and you don't look and see where they are and what they're shooting at, you're like, come on, shoot, right? If your guys can't see, obviously they're not going to be able to shoot anything. If you're going to do the micromanaging that we're suggesting on the channel, you want to make sure that your units can see, have good line of sight. That includes little thing like this little ridge that's right in front of us, this little hill. Don't put your archers right here, right? They can't see. Make sure that they can see. All right, let's see what the enemy does here. Of course, as with many of the armies early in a campaign, it's going to be majority infantry, 60, 70, 80% infantry. In this case, it's like 90% infantry. Now our units are shooting. That's good, right? They're going to start hitting guys. Their little shields are going to block a lot of the damage, but archers are incredibly accurate in Bannerlord, and they're going to do a pretty good job there just fending off the enemy. Now your skirmishers here actually did a pretty good job on the enemy cavalry. We lost that guy there, but that was a fair exchange, right? The enemy came in with cavalry and that was all they did. Now moving our skirmishers a little closer here because I want them to throw javelins at the enemy. I mentioned it before, our Huskarls here, we're going to move these guys back, but I don't recommend you move them back until their enemy is close to them, right about there. You can see what I'm doing here. I'm just going to move it towards the archers, right? Now, the nice thing is these guys are disciplined. They also are athletic. So even though they're in a square, they're trying to maintain their square, they're moving pretty fast, right? Now, what's happening while that's happening, right? Archers are flaying the enemy from the side, right? They're trying to form a shield wall here and doing their darndest to defend, but it's not working very well. Remember what we said before? We're now going to move it towards the side. So that square now goes side to side. And I recommend at this stage you charge with these skirmishers. Some of these guys are out of javelins. You can actually see behind them. They don't have any javelins sticking out anymore. One or two guys might have a javelin. And what that does is it kind of picks on the trailers of the sturgeons here, right? Gives the sturgeons one more serious threat to deal with in this battle. The coup de grace here, the last thing I suggest you do is charge with this archer division. That way they aggressively move up. Every single guy who can't see will shoot. They will move in for the kill. The last thing you can do is when the enemy is in this situation here, and the situation is there's less infantry attacking your square than the square itself has. In other words, you can see there's 8, 10, 12 guys here. Charge with this square. Charge with this guys. Tell these guys charge. And those Huskarls are like, finally, we get to kill stuff, right? The enemy's reeling. They're having a bad day. They're getting shot from all kinds of different directions. And our units blow the enemy off the battlefield here. So this is an enemy that was favored to win, right? They were significantly favored in the power bar. They were significantly favored from a numerical perspective. And they didn't just lose here. We just smoked them, right? They got completely shattered. They probably killed 20 of our units or less. 13 units here, right? So you get 28 upgrades, right? And it won't take more than a battle or two like that before your units are tough, right? And you're going to be starting to advance to maybe clan tier 3, where you get more troops, your units are getting stronger, and you can take on harder foes. Let's take on a harder foe here, right? It'll take me a second to set it up, but you guys will hardly notice. We'll do some editing and jump right in. All right, this should work. This is going to be a tall order, but let's try a harder situation here that you might encounter in the early game. Now, I don't recommend this. If you're a new player, this is pushing the envelope, and we're going to have to do a little bit more micromanaging than the previous battle. We have encountered Ragenvad. This is the Sturgeon Grand Prince, the pompous Sturgeon Grand Prince. And you notice our army is very similar. A few upgrades, and we have a few more troops, right? We've gone out and acquired a few more. Obviously, you want to get as many Huskarls as possible. For this scenario, we have 9. Now, our enemy has a fair amount of archers, skirmishers, and infantry, and a little bit of cavalry mixed in. This is going to be a very difficult battle. However, I think we've got a chance, and the power bar is not a disaster. That is a winnable situation if you use tactics, which of course we are going to. Again, Bannerlord difficulty, in we go. Now, this is going to be remarkably similar to what we just showed you, right? We're actually uphill this time, which is even better. We're going to split our divisions into the exact same formations. The nice thing about this is basically you won't have to make major changes between tier 2 and tier 3 with this army, other than the fact that your troops are upgrading. Looks like we've got a few less tier 4 this battle. That's okay still. And we're going to do just a little bit more of what I call kiting. Kiting is something that most players are familiar with. If you're not, what it basically means is moving back your army as they approach you. The reason it's very powerful is that as they approach you, a lot of times they will hold up their shield, and as they do so, they get skewered, right? Because they're moving slower. That just means even more time for our archers to shoot them. As they move in a shield wall, they move even slower. You get the idea. All right, so 6th, these divisions are backwards. Let's see, strongest. Again, we want the strongest units with the shield in that 1st division and weaker units in the 6th. That way, again, and it's always a good idea to inspect your units. You zoom in here, and I do see a few imposters in the 6th division there, so we're just going to reduce the amount slightly. By the way, for square, I would not make squares of like 6 guys. The absolute minimum for square is like 12, 15, something like that. 20, 25 is optimal. This is going to be a really tough square, very difficult for the enemy to destroy it. Now, we're going to do a little different this battle, and that is we're going to intentionally put our archers at an angle as the enemy moves up. I'll show you that once the battle starts. Let's get this going here. All right, now as before, this 6th division of skirmishers, we're going to spread them out and tell them to hold fire. I don't want them throwing javelins as soon as they see a single horseman. We want them throwing javelins when there's lots of targets, right? Preferably when the enemy's packed in there, right? When they're just thick ranks of the enemies. All right, we'll speed it up again, a little RTS mod, and you can see we're outnumbered almost 3-1 here, and this is the Sturgeon equivalent of a king, right? This should be a scenario that you can't win, and I think we have a pretty decent chance to win this. Our 4th Corps of Archers start shooting. The enemy should form a shield wall. If they don't form a shield wall, that's okay, right? And usually you can tell when they form a shield wall because they will tighten together. You know what? They may not here because they don't have a lot of shields. A lot of their units are skirmishers and lower level infantry. It's kind of a mix. They have kind of an even mix of shields and guys with no shields. They still have throwing weapons though, right? So we're going to want to continue to move back, and here's where that 6th division you open fire. Now cavalry's coming, right? These guys are going to suffer some losses. What I recommend is fire javelins. They'll all throw a couple javelins and then move them back, right? Not a huge distance, but like 20 meters, give or take. Same thing with the 5th division and the 1st division. So what we've effectively done now is back up all of the units about 20 meters from the starting spot. Of course, you can get in here and slash some recruits in the face. I'm not really trying to fight too much in these battles because I don't want my fighting skill to determine victory in this case, right? I want tactics and more importantly, the army composition, right? And this is not supposed to be a video showing how experienced I am. That comes in other videos, right? This video here is to help you newer players, you less experienced players, or maybe players that are very experienced that just recently discovered the joy of tactics. The joy of tactics in Bannerlord is really something else, right? It's basically a whole new game once you learn that you can do all these things in a campaign. Here's the Grand Prince right there. The enemy's chasing our square, and it looks like they just kind of gave up, right? So our 6th division, now you want to charge. I like to charge with the 1st division as well. Your archers right here, these are the guys you want to make sure that the infantry doesn't get to. So if you see this happening, move them back. Just another 20 yards, right? Another 15 yards. They may backpedal, but that's okay because other units are attacking them. Other archers are shooting at them. If they chase your units are attacking them in the back, right? It's kind of win-win. The chess parlance, of course, is checkmate, right? The enemy's really fucked here no matter what they do. And it looks like a couple of them got to our archers. Not going to matter. The enemy's getting skewered. I guess I shouldn't kill the Grand Prince. That would be inappropriate. Hopefully some of our low-level units kill the Grand Prince. Now, it's still pretty close. In fact, I got a dipshit chasing me. At this stage, you could definitely argue charge with everybody's appropriate. What I actually like to do here, you see all their archers down here? I like to take your Huskarls, your best infantry, and send it right towards the enemy. What that'll do is draw a lot of attention away from your other weaker units, right? Your other units can't handle being shot, right? These guys, even over here, your archers are getting skewered. They're not going to do well. But your Huskarls, these guys are tough. Someone kill this guy so I don't have to. The Grand Prince here is kind of giving our army a hard time. I'll keep moving it forward. I'm going to try not to die here. And it is close enough that I'm going to kill 1 or 2 units here just to swing this battle into a victory. We might win anyways, right? And of course, in a battle like this, you should be killing 3, 4, 5, 10 guys, even players that are not really experienced. A quick tutorial on that, right? Grab your shield, get yourself a spear, and just look for targets, right? Just run through here. Stab guys around, and it also really helps to distract the enemy, right? Your units are down here fighting. If you run in here, won't even attack. Just run your horse through here. That knocks guys around. They also will try to attack you, and of course, sometimes you're going to eat it like that. You can see from the power bar, though, that even though it's close, this battle is over, right? Barring a last-second reversal here. Ragenvad is still doing his thing. Also, obviously, target him early on. His shield is packed with arrows. They did make Lords stronger in a recent patch. I can't help but wonder if we're seeing that here, because for sure before, Lords would go down like an absolutely $5 some word, I'll let you guys imagine whatever you want for that word. And this battle's over. It's not a lopsided victory, but sometimes the closest battles are sweeter, right? Obviously, if I fought more, we would have swung this battle even more. But let's zoom out here literally and talk about what we just did. An outnumbered army 3-1 by the Grand Prince with a relatively modest army here, right? It's not like it's all tier 5 and tier 6, and we just defeated them, right? Sent them packing. This is the kind of result that I think even players without a huge amount of experience in Bannerlord can have with tactics. And again, more importantly, and I think, well, just as important as tactics is the right army composition. Make sure you have plenty of archers. Make sure you have tough infantry and use them correctly, right? Don't have your archers right on the front line getting shot. Protect your archers. And I think you too can have similar results and ride off into a beautiful sunset. All right, we are going to wrap this episode up. We are going to have at least 2 more of these. We are going to do an intermediate Sturgeon army. Sturgeon. Yeah, we'll might get to the Sturgeons eventually. We're going to do an intermediate Nord army, the army composition I recommend, and we will add shock troops for those who want to cut the enemy apart with your battle axes. Stay tuned. That part is coming. I will help you use shock troops to dismember your opponent, and we will also cover what I consider a good army makeup for Sturgeons I did it again. For Nords in the late game. All right, if you appreciated this video or enjoyed or benefited or even if you hated it, I want you to hit that like button, especially you guys who hated it. Please hit that like button on the way out. And you want to subscribe, of course, if you want to see more from our channel. We produce regular Bannerlord content, and we will help you dominate the DLC. All right, friends, thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time.